Not all roads are made to be safe. There are roads in the world where one wrong turn and you go straight off a cliff. There are highways that disappear under the sea. And there are routes that even insurance companies themselves don't want you to take. In this video, we will visit some of the most dangerous roads on the planet. From the narrow mountain passes of the Himalayas to the barren deserts with no rescue service for hundreds of kilometers. And as the list goes on, you'll wonder even more why there are still people willing to travel these roads. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. This means a lot to us content creators. Thank you. And now let's begin. Guoliang Tunnel Road, China. The Guoliang Tunnel Road is located in the Taihang Mountains in Henan Province. Before the tunnel was built, it was almost impossible for residents to enter or leave the village of Guoliang. The only passage back then was a steep staircase carved into the cliff, known as the Sky Ladder. In the early 1970s, the residents repeatedly asked the government for help to have a proper road. But according to reports about the history of the place, it was not immediately given funding or approval. So what the villagers did was, they found a way themselves. 13 residents started digging a tunnel on the side of the mountain. They had no formal engineering training. They had no modern equipment, only hammers, carving tools, and simple steel tools while hanging on the edge of the cliff. The project lasted for almost 5 years. In 1977, the tunnel was officially open, and even today it is still well known. As one of the most dangerous roads in China, the road is uneven and some parts are narrow. There are blind corners with almost no visibility. And right at the side of the tunnel, there are large holes that serve as windows looking out from the tunnel. If you encounter an oncoming vehicle in the wrong part of the tunnel, sometimes you have to reverse a long way just so both vehicles can pass. But despite the danger, it also became a symbol of survival and determination for the whole village. Because if the residents hadn't built that tunnel, their community might have been completely cut off from the world. Passage d'Augois, France. The Passage d'Augois is a road over 4 kilometers long that connects mainland France to the island of Noirmoutier. At low tide, it just looks like a normal coastal road, but after a few hours, it becomes completely submerged by the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. This happens twice a day. According to local authorities in France, there are only specific times when it's safe to drive through here. That's why there are tide schedules and warning signs at both ends of the road. But even with all the warnings, some drivers still get trapped. In different parts of Passage d'Augois, tall rescue towers have been built for those who get stranded as the water rises. Stranded drivers climb up there while waiting for a rescue boat or for the sea to subside. From an aerial view, it really looks like the entire highway is being swallowed by the ocean. But surprisingly, it is still in use today. Even though there's already a modern bridge built in the 1970s for safer crossing to the island, many tourists and locals still choose to pass through Passage d'Augois because the route is shorter and more scenic. Tianmen Mountain Road, China. From below, the road looks like just a line as it winds its way up the side of the very steep mountain in Hunan Province. But when you count every turn, that's when you'll understand why it's famous all over the world. 99 hairpin turns. Tianmen Mountain Road climbs more than 1,000 meters from the valley floor up to the top of the mountain. And as you go higher and higher, it feels like the ground beneath the vehicle is slowly disappearing. One of the most famous destinations there is the Tianmen Cave, also known as Heaven's Gate. It's a massive natural opening right in the mountain itself. According to historical records in China, it was formed after part of the cliff collapsed in the 3rd century AD, creating a huge hole in the rock. It's clearly visible from the city when the weather is clear. Because the number of tourists increased, a bigger access road to the mountain was needed. That's why in the early 2000s, the modern mountain highway that's being used today was built. There are parts that are so steep it feels like the whole vehicle is tilted upward. In some turns, the guardrail is very thin. And in some sections, there's a cliff right on the side. When it rains or gets foggy, visibility drops even more. But what's even more surprising is that every day, large tourist buses full of passengers still pass through here. While the driver carefully navigates each of the 99 sharp turns one by one, most of the passengers just quietly hold on to the armrest. And even though it looks dangerous, this has also become a popular venue for stunt driving and racing exhibitions. There are even some professional drivers who have attempted to finish the entire road in a very short amount of time. But for ordinary people, simply going down or climbing up this mountain is enough to make you feel how small your vehicle is compared to the size of the cliffs around you. Trollstigen, Norway. There's a mountain road that looks like it was made for fantasy movies. Narrow roads, steep mountains, powerful waterfalls, and snow walls that are sometimes even taller than the vehicle itself. This is Trollstigen, which means Troll's Ladder. The entire road has a series of 11 hairpin bends as you go up the mountain. In some parts, the road is almost just a single lane wide. And because the road is right next to the mountain, there are areas that are vulnerable to rockfalls and avalanches. According to Norwegian authorities, Trollstigen is closed for a large part of the year because of snow, ice, and severe weather conditions. It usually only reopens around late spring or early summer. The Stigfossen waterfall falls right next to the road. During the snowmelt, the water is so strong that some parts of the road are permanently wet, and sometimes the rushing current even crosses the road itself. In other words, you're already driving on a narrow mountain road, and there's a waterfall right beside you. Construction of the road started during the Great Depression. As a major public works project in Norway, they used dynamite and manual labor back then to carve the route along the side of the mountain. In 1936, it was officially opened. Until now, it remains one of the most visited tourist routes in the country. There's even a viewing platform at the top where you can clearly see the entire zigzag road while the waterfall cascades down the side of the mountain. Trollstigen remains dangerous despite being modern and well kept. Skipper's Canyon Road brings new risks. In New Zealand, there's a road that even insurance companies themselves don't want to cover. This isn't an abandoned road, nor is it an illegal route. It's actually a tourist destination. But if you take your rented vehicle there, it's possible that your insurance coverage will automatically become void. This is Skipper's Canyon Road. You can find it near Queenstown on the South Island of New Zealand. It's a narrow gravel road. It's right on the edge of a cliff as it follows the steep gorge of the Shotover River. During the gold rush era, in the late 19th century, the road was built so miners could reach the mining settlements inside the canyon. Back then, they only used shovels, pickaxes, and dynamite as they carved the route along solid rock faces. If you encounter a vehicle on the wrong part of the road, sometimes you have to reverse for hundreds of meters, while half of your wheels are on the edge of the cliff. And because the surface is loose gravel, just one wrong tap of the brakes and the vehicle could slide. But what makes Skipper's Canyon different from other dangerous roads in the world is that fear isn't the only problem here, but also money. International brands often exclude this road from insurance coverage because of the high risk. This means that if you get into an accident here using a rented vehicle, you could be personally liable for the damage and recovery costs. Instead, people join guided tours. They use specialized tours with four-wheel drive vehicles and experienced local drivers who know every curve of the canyon by heart. And according to many visitors, just a few minutes into the trip, you'll immediately understand why insurance companies don't want to cover this. Fairy Meadows Road, Pakistan. The Fairy Meadows in Pakistan. When you see the place, you'll think it looks just like a postcard. Vast green meadows, thick pine forests, and in the background stands the massive mountain of Nanga Parbat, part of the Himalayas. But before you can reach that view, you first have to pass through one of the most dangerous mountain roads in Asia. The route starts at Raikot Bridge near the Karakoram Highway. From there, visitors ride local jeeps that can climb the narrow and rocky road up the mountain. In some parts, the road is only as wide as the jeep itself. On one side, there's a mountain wall. On the other side, it's a sheer drop down to the deep ravine of the Indus River. There's no concrete barrier, no guardrail, and most of the time it's just loose dirt and rocks under the tires. According to various reports on tourism and road safety in the region, only local drivers are usually allowed to travel here because they need to be familiar with the terrain and the mountain conditions. And even though the drivers are experienced, they still drive slowly and carefully. Landslides also happen regularly in the area, especially after rain or snowmelt. And there are times when workers manually clear the covered parts of the road so that it can be used again. Standing above the landscape is Nanga Parbat, the 9th highest mountain on Earth. It is also known by the nickname Killer Mountain because of its extreme difficulty and the many accidents that have happened on it throughout mountaineering history. In 2013, according to the Associated Press and other international reports, an armed group attacked a mountaineering base camp in the Nanga Parbat area and killed several foreign climbers and local guides. So in this place, it's not just the mountain that poses a danger. Sometimes just getting there is already a survival challenge. Kolyma Highway, Russia. In the eastern part of Russia, there's a highway that's feared not just because of snow, mud, or cold. It's known because of the people who never made it home after it was built. This is the Kolyma Highway, more famously known as the Road of Bones. This route stretches for more than 2,000 kilometers, crossing some of the most remote and coldest places in Siberia and the Russian Far East. In winter, temperatures here can drop to below -50 degrees Celsius. From the 1930s to the 1950s, a large part of the Kolyma Highway was built using forced labor from the Soviet Gulag system. According to historians and various research on Soviet labor camps, thousands of prisoners were sent to the region to mine gold and build infrastructure under harsh conditions. Many died due to hunger, disease, extreme cold, overwork, and brutal treatment in the labor camps. Historians' estimates of the total number of deaths are not exactly the same, but historical records clearly show that the human cost of the project was enormous. And this is where the nickname Road of Bones came from. In the summer, when the permafrost beneath the ground melts, some parts of the road turn into thick mud. There are trucks that get stuck for days while waiting for rescue or for the mud to dry up. In the winter, the entire route turns into an icy desert. There are places where you have to travel hundreds of kilometers before you see a gas station, repair shop, or hospital. And in many sections, there's also no cell phone signal. Along some parts of the highway, you can still see old abandoned gulag camps, ruined barracks, watchtowers, and buildings that are slowly being swallowed by the forest. It's a quiet reminder of the price paid by the people who were forced to build this road. Because of the Road of Bones, you're not only up against nature, but also the weight of history. Canning Stock Route, Australia. In Australia, there's a route where simply filling up your tank before the trip isn't enough. Because if you miscalculate here, there might not be another gas station for almost 2,000 kilometers. This is the Canning Stock Route, an extremely long desert track that crosses some of the driest and most remote parts of Western Australia. The route passes through the Great Sandy Desert and the Gibson Desert, two places known for extreme temperatures and extremely difficult terrain. And even though it's called a route, it's not a road in the usual sense. In many parts, it's just tire tracks in the sand. No asphalt, no streetlights, no cell phone signal, and over the very long distance, you won't see any towns or emergency services. So for those traveling here, it's more like a survival expedition than a road trip. According to the history of the route, it was built in the early 1900s under the leadership of Alfred Kenning as a cattle route to the southern markets of Australia. They built a dozen wells along the desert so that animals and travelers would have a water source. Up to now, some of those old wells are still used as main reference points along the route, but not all the water there is safe to drink. Some wells are salty, contaminated, or almost destroyed. That's why experienced travelers always bring water purification equipment as part of their survival gear. Another tough enemy here is the sand dunes. Vehicles have to cross more than 800 dunes. In other areas, you need to reduce the tire pressure so the wheels don't get stuck while climbing the soft sand. And if you get stuck in the 45-degree heat of the Australian desert, you could spend hours digging under the sun just to get out. But even with all that preparation, the reality on the Canning Stock route is still clear. When you're in the middle of the Australian desert, it doesn't matter how nice your vehicle is, because in that place, nature is still in control. Darien Gap, Panama, and Colombia. It's between Panama and Colombia. On the map, it looks like just a small gap. In real life, it's a combination of dense rainforest, muddy swamps, steep mountains, rivers, and extremely dangerous terrain. And for many decades, various plans to make the highway continuous in this area have failed. It's not just because building a road is difficult, but because nature itself seems to be resisting. According to environmental studies and reports about the region, the Darien rainforest is one of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the world. It is home to many wildlife species and indigenous communities that have long lived in the area. That's why the idea of building a permanent highway here has long been controversial because of the possible environmental destruction and its impact on the local community. But aside from nature, there's another reason why the Darien Gap is feared: armed crime. According to international reports and government warnings in recent years, some parts of the region have long been used by smugglers for smuggling, by killers, traffickers, and armed groups because the terrain is so hard to control. In recent years, it has also become one of the most dangerous migrant routes in the world. According to United Nations agencies and humanitarian groups, people die along the route due to exhaustion, illness, drowning during river crossings, or violence while inside the jungle. And because the area is so vast and dense, not everyone who goes missing is found. In the 1970s, there were attempts to support the construction of roads in the region. But according to historical reports, the project was abandoned because of the extremely difficult terrain, the risk of disease, and the enormous costs. Until now, the Pan American Highway remains incomplete in this area, and that might be the very reason why the rainforest is still alive. Because there are places in the world where no matter how advanced human technology is, they still refuse to fully yield to us.